Hello, everybody. How are you doing? It's Friday, and hey, I think you're in the best place you could be. Yeah, I mean, I like it, and the company is just great. So, how is everybody? Uh, Friday is all here, and you know, everything is good. I don't know about you, but I am digging the journey. It is just, it really is far out. Um, I'll tell you, my generation, when we cross over, they're going to say, all right, about time. How's everybody? Well, thank you, all the moderators and everybody else. So good to see y'all. Just speaking favor over each and every one of you, just seeing all the names coming up. So, hello, how is it? It's good. It's very good. I'm just in kind of one of those groovy kind of moods. It's kind of cool. Doing a lot of reading, and y'all are sending me a lot of good stuff. I mean, I tell you, we're going to have to get a bigger library because it's getting full, man. Felt like last night I woke up sore, like I had been hit on, or thinking, I wonder if we do battle sometimes, in the astral realm. I think we do. And I think sometimes it's real. It actually, transmute over into the physical. Who knows? Hello, Hadley. How are you doing? Good to see you. So cool shirt. Well, Jack, 68. Thank you. That's really kind of you. It makes me feel humbled because, yeah. Very kind, very kind. May it be returned to you 100-fold. By the way, so I'm meditating this morning, right? Trying to figure out, hey, Twisted Isby, how you doing? Susie Q, much love. Julianne Payne, how are you doing? Emperor Rex, and hello, Karen, Queen of Courts. Going to get Karen on. I want to get her and David on. Anyway, there's Heather Cooper. How are y'all doing? Infinite Frequency, so good to see you. Got your email. Anyway, so got a couple of things I want to share with you. So when I was in the religion I was in and walked away from it, and happiest day, there's that song Edwin Hawkins singers, oh, a happy day. Yeah, well, that when I put the lyrics is that when I walked away, that's when my burdens went away. Gee, I'm a poet and didn't know it. No, that's because, we practice, the occult here. Witchcraft, casting spells of goodness, favor. Here's a shock for you. I think you could be a Christian and a witch at the same time. I really do. So anyway, one of the things that I knew about the Holy Spirit was that it says it inhabits the body. The body is the temple of the Spirit. And Paul just, he was a wizard himself, and they changed it. But think about it. So you have writings, and it's virtually in every religion and every philosophy you can look. The body is a temple. It's far out, and you love it, and you worship it the way that you should, honor it. It will last way longer than the other bodies. And if you begin to think about it, your spirit inhabits a temple. Munch on that one a little bit. But it is true. You doubt me? I got a shirt that says, underestimate me. That'll be fun. Yeah. But anyway, happy birthday to any and everyone that's having ones. Hey, it's your day, man. Party. All right. So weird stuff. How many? And who was it? Hope in Cincinnati, or Hope in Sin. I think that's what it was. Yeah. Anyway, sent me an email, and one of my favorite authors back in the day, I mean, I consumed the guy's books, was Dean Koontz. Still, I can remember Black Lightning, Dragon Man. There's just a number of them that I loved. I consumed those books. Dean Koontz, I swear he's a wizard, was really into something. And I want to share this with y'all because he actually predicted this coronavirus, what would you say, 20, 30 years ago? Here it is. Eyes of Darkness. Eyes of Darkness by Dean Koontz, a 1981 novel, predicted the coronavirus-like outbreak called the Wuhan 400 coronavirus. I think the dude, man, Dean, I love your books. You know, get into them. They're a lot of fun. In fact, I just might do that. I love his style of writing. You get into the characters. The carny ones were always the strange ones for me. You know, he wrote a couple of books about carnies. Something about carnivals. I don't know. I mean, they got, it's weird. F. Paul Wilson also had them in his books. I'd recommend for everybody to get Night World. It's not on a PDF, so, and to get the original copies are very, very expensive, but you can get the reprints. Great book, by the way. So here it is. He says you have, and it goes into this book, you have to understand, you have to go back 20 months. It was around then that a Chinese scientist named Li Chen defected to the United States carrying a diskette recorded of China's most important and dangerous new biological weapon in a decade. They called the stuff Wuhan 400 because it was developed by their rDNA labs outside the city of Wuhan. And it was the 400 viable strain of man-made microorganisms created at the research center. Hell, folks, you can just bring this right to today. 30 years ago. Word for word, exactly what we have today. And from the city. The Wuhan 400 is a perfect weapon. It afflicts only human beings. No other living creature can carry it. And like syphilis, Wuhan 400 can't survive outside a living human body for longer than a minute, which means it can't permanently contaminate objects or entire places the way anthrax or other virulent microorganisms can. And when the host expires, the Wuhan 400 within him perishes in a short while later, as soon as the temperature of the corpse drops below 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll leave that there. But yeah. You can't make this stuff up, folks. I'm serious. You just can't. What do we do, ladies and gentlemen? I do not know. You know, it often makes me wonder. The problem I have with prophecy, fortune telling, not that I don't think it can be done. I think we have the ability to look into the future. I think the future is a fractal, like Trina has stated. It has unlimited possibilities. And whatever happens to manifest is the result of conscious thought, of intent. Here's something that brings that out perfectly. 29 years ago. I mean, did someone read the book? Eric, thank you, my friend. 100-fold back at you, my thank you. I mean, the question becomes, I mean, did they? And getting back to prophecy. So here's my issue with it is that the reason why I don't like prophecy is what it's saying is that what your life, my life doesn't mean crap. There's already been a predetermined outcome. I don't like that. And quite frankly, the concept of a God, I think, what would be the purpose if a God knew everything? I mean, think about it. That would be the ultimate hell, wouldn't it? You know everything. You know everything that's going to happen. You know what it would do to a conscious mind? It'd make it go insane. It most likely would revert to a self-induced amnesia. Because, folks, part of the adventure is not knowing. That's what makes it so exciting. Yeah. It's just a thought. You can pick up on it any way you'd like to. But truth in me, well, that is the monologue already. So there you go. But think about it. It's, yeah. So I want to get right into this because we got a lot of material to cover. But I'm going to tell you, in the weeks to come, we're really going to dig deep into a topic that may be the answer that all of us are looking for. And if it is, man, that really sucks. Again, you have to admit, no one, people go and, we want to find out what, like with tarot, you have a gifting in that, and it can tell people about things that they're not aware of. And I think that leads to a change of the future to where you can make it more favorable for yourself. That's just my take on it. We're just magnificent beings. That's all I can say. Light beings we are. It never ends, folks. It never does. Challenges will always be there. You don't want to live in a plane of existence where there's not challenges. The day you stop taking on the challenges is the day you start regressing. Because if you only want to be in a place where you know all the rules, you know exactly how it works, there's no deviation to it, that it becomes a routine, and routine is taken from the root word ritual, you're going to become stuck. And then when the unknown does come, and it always does, your psyche is going to be in a place where you can't handle it because the unknown scares you. You're afraid of it. Instead of looking at it as an adventure. Yeah, is there going to be risk? Have no doubt of it. But I just tell you, what I see in the astral realm is teaching me that you have to be prepared. You don't want to go over there like a sucker being in a 3-card monte game. You're going, huh? I don't know. How'd that happen? Come this way. We'll show you the way. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. I believe you, man. Who are you, man? Well, we're the guys that you call angels. Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. So where do I go? You just follow right down that pathway there. Instead of going, what? Wait a minute. Show me your credentials. Where's your authority? Where do you think I am? Man, I tell you what, you can be like, take on the, the Jersey attitude. What? Who? Why? All right, I'll stop. Someone says stop. All right. No, think about it. We don't think about it. That's the problem. Man, we ought to say giddy up. All right, let's rock and roll. We got a lot of material to cover. Yeah, been about a week, Monday, since we dropped off in our lesson, and we're talking about. And David Barry said this, and I think it's a good point. You know, folks, the New World Order is not going to happen. It's already happened. I mean, game over on that one. That one, you know, that closed a long time ago. We're dealing now in what we would call the aftermath of implementing the ideology. And they're doing a good job. And again, I want to point something out here, folks. There's a lot of new people coming in that are obviously have left Christianity, are thinking about leaving Christianity, and they're searching. And a lot of this just hits them, and it causes cognitive dissonance. Because you see, folks, you have to look at the world population control. The three parts of that in which you see the, what I always call the three-legged prong, is they invented religion. They control it. Every religion requires a tax of some kind, a gifting. You have to honor the gods. You have to pay your tithes. It is better to give than to receive. Yeah. And if you can get your mind wrapped around it and understand, don't get into arguments because of a belief system. You don't have any idea where that belief system originated from. And if you want to be really candid, how can someone claim to be a God that never shows up? Oh, no, it's invisible. It's of spirit. Well, why is it then that it's ridiculed if you go looking for ghosts and you start recording them and you start beginning to film them? How is that any different? It's not. That's the point. So here we go, and get strapped in. Now, Soros is one that you hear about today. Now, this is on the American side of how, well, I don't know if the American side is the right one. So the oligarchy is Kissinger, Soros, Brzezinski. Now, Brzezinski's out of the picture. Soros will soon be. I mean, both these cats are getting in, they're in their 90s, I believe. But nevertheless, the legacy that they are going to leave already has its tendrils as a tumor does into a body. The problem with the tumor is if it was just a single attachment, it's not. It gets into the micro. They're saying that people, governments, and economies of all nations must serve the needs of the multinational banks and corporations. We are simply chattel, fodder. Bill Clinton's administration was the one that deregulated derivatives. People were wiped out because of that. It's the same reason why people in Congress can do insider trading and not be put in jail for it. But if you and I did it, they send us off. Yeah. So that deregulated the telecom industry, which, by the way, Google's, Facebook, YouTube are all classified under as a telcom. How many of you knew that? Reason for, there are special exemptions as a telco. Yeah. That's why Amazon never pays taxes. At least not the way that you and I do. that put our country's only strong banking laws in the grave. He's the one who rammed the North American Free Trade Agreement through Congress. And just recently, Trump administration had to rewrite that. And I haven't read it, but I can tell you I didn't like the first one, and it's going to lead to the new currency that we'll have coming up here. All right, George Soros is merely the visible face of a vast network of private financial interests controlled by the leading aristocratic and royal families of Europe. As the first president of the new global era, 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 not mistake, time, Bill Clinton set up the WTO, boosted the international budget, maintained high levels of Pentagon spending, militarized the drug wars in South America, continued the military and economic assault on Iraq, laid the groundwork for humanitarian interventions, bombed the Sudan and Afghanistan, and carried out protracted aerial raids on Serbia. Entrusted by prospects for total surveillance of the world, Clinton raised intelligence spending levels to more than $300 billion. That's back in the 90s, folks. With increasing emphasis on the super secret National Security Agency. When has that been in the news? Well, Trump administration just cleaned out all the spies that the Obama administration had left. The planned, systematic, and brutal destruction of the Serb infrastructure must be considered one of the great war crimes of the post-war years. Carl Boggs. As we continue to go through this lays out the ever continuation of the evidence of how this New World Order here today, how it came about, how it consolidated power. And it really doesn't matter. I know a lot of people have debates on what Trump is. Well, listen, Trump's a billionaire. That should tell you everything you need to know. It's just the way it is. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. But you don't become billionaires just by the luck of the draw. You're paying a price somewhere. Look what President H.W. said. What is at stake is a big deal, a new world order. And, I got to say one thing for George H. Bush. I mean, he kept telling us, folks, it is the new world order. He was a proponent of it and made sure he was. And if you look at George H., he actually was probably one of the most powerful men outside the nobility. He was the head of the CIA, vice president, president. This guy knew all the secrets. He knew where all the skeletons were. And I am delighted to be here in these new councils on foreign relations headquarters, as I've been often to the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. Isn't that just lovely? We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's opening remarks during her speech to the Council on Foreign Relations, July 15, 2009. Again, Kissinger, as he has been noted to say, presidents come and go every 4 or 8 years. But operatives such as George Kennan, Henry Kissinger, Donald Rumsfeld, Zbigniew Brzezinski, George Shultz, James Baker linger around in public service for decades. And there's a whole new group now. These cats are dead or dying, and the power has been transferred. Many say under the Obama administration is where it really came into. So we have the global money centers, Wall Street, Here's U.S. President Thomas Jefferson. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Well, how do you feel about that now? Nothing happens on Wall Street that is not known to the Bank of England, whose instructions are relayed through the Morgan Bank and then put into action through key brokerage houses. Again, John Coleman on his book, The Committee of 300. So we continue to see these centers of power. In London, many of y'all that are over there, I like that y'all. Yeah, still got Texas in me. But anyway, the city of London, apparently there is the square mile. If anyone lives there, I'd love to get some pictures of this square mile. Send them to me. I'd love to see that. Because this place, I contend, is a vortex. These money centers around the world have power to them. And I don't think they're just happenstance. And let's say, well, gee, June, that looks like a good place to put a bank. No. The City of London caters for those above the law. Isn't that a fine place to be? It operates on the basis of bypassing democratic society as a whole. Wow. I guess that's an express ticket. This has come about over time where an extraordinary gentleman's agreement has stood the test of time. The head of state and his or her governments have the need of large loans for wars and the like. The city, in exchange for such commodity, has extracted certain privileges the rest of the population do not enjoy. The end result over the centuries is that it is now has its own financial jurisdiction to do pretty much as it pleases. The City of London has its own private funding and will buy off any attempt to erode its powers. Any scrutiny, of its financial affairs are put beyond external inspection or audits. Gran Van Bergen. You know, doesn't that just give you the warm and fuzzies? Yeah. You know, it's like seeing a cop that is driving his patrol car and is drunk. So drunk he passes out at the wheel, but he doesn't get arrested. Why? Because the other cops cover up for him. This is like, having a head of the FBI lie before Congress, commit perjury, a federal crime, felony, Class A, and never a word spoken. I mean, it goes on and on and on, folks. And as long as that exists, there is no freedom. We're all slaves. Whether we want to agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. Now, in our own conscious minds, we say, no, we're sovereign, we're divine, but yet you're still paying your taxes. Just saying. At the last census, London's population stood at just 7,325. Its employees stand at 414,600, nearly 40% of them in the financial services. Nearly 17,000 businesses are registered there, 2,700 are finance and insurance-based, and just over 45% are foreign-owned entities. This is that London center. And you can see it goes back all the way to King William III. 1694, House of Orange privatized the Bank of England, established the City of London and turned control of England's money over to an elite group of international bankers, like Vatican City. The City of London, not to be confused with Greater London, is a privately owned corporation operating under its own flag. Now, folks, if you know anything about flags, this is a big deal. With its own constitution and free from legal constraints that govern the rest of us. This action paved the way for a private cartel of international bankers to embark on a plan of implementing world governance. This is taken from the article on thedailymail.com, How the City of London Controls World Powers. Nothing's changed. I mean, you can have an American Revolution and you can have the Corporation of the United States. Listen, that's the only way the Federal Reserve is illegally allowed to exist. But we don't want to talk about that, do we? Then we talk about the central banks. Here's something that's really interesting. Most sovereign nations in the world have publicly owned central banks, but they are controlled by a global banking. Here we go again. Here, I don't understand how this oligarchy is made up, but these guys, I'm telling you, I think they go back, way back. Not in the last 1,000, I think way before that, are made up of the largest private banks and a few international banking and dynastic families. There it is with the families. This is the bloodlines. Still makes me think of an alien intelligence. Call me suspicious, color me, whatever. States, most especially large homogenic ones, such as the United States and Great Britain, are controlled by the International Central Banking System, working through secret agreements at the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, which is just BS, and operating through national central banks, such as the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve. The same international banking cartel that controls the United States today previously controlled Great Britain and held it up as the international hegemon. When the British order faded and was replaced by the United States, the U.S. ran the global economy. However, the same interests are served. States will be used and discarded at will by the international banking cartel. They are simply tools. They think we're toads. Andrew Gavin Marshall. So we have the central banks. Who are they? Well, we got the Bank of England. Again, this was, we know the story of King William III, how he set this up. Then the Rothschilds family and their agents steer the world's economy through the Bank of England. N.M. Rothschild and Sons and their web of private banks in all major nations. When an economic crash occurs, it has most definitely been ordered from the city or across the pond by their associates at the Federal Reserve and Wall Street. Folks, it's a known fact that the first Great Depression was the result of bad monetary policy that came from the Fed. It is the Fed that controls inflation, deflation. And we have to be very concerned because at the last auction yesterday, our bonds hit an all-time low, which is not good. Go listen to the Steiger Perspective. I can't talk about this so freely as I can there, but folks, there's a tsunami coming, and it ain't pretty. I see no way of escaping it. The Bank of England is in effect a sovereign world power, for this privately owned institution is not subject to regulation or control in the slightest degree by the British Parliament. This privately owned and controlled institution functions as the great balance wheel of the credit of the world, able to expand or contract credit at will, and is subject only to the orders of the city dominated by the fortunes of the House of Rothschild and the policies of the House of Rothschild. Now, let's talk about these houses for a second. I bet you heard that one. How many of you remember SG-1, the Stargate series? The guy old, those parasitic things, they were the house. If you remember the movie Dune, and if you've read the book, House of Atreides, House of, it was the house. This goes back, I think, to the stars. I mean, whoever is here, which we're trying to unmask this, whoever that is, I think it's alien. But these are covenants. I think that these are potentially galactic contracts. Unless you say there is no one else but just man in all of the universe. So we get to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, is not owned by the United States government. Its chairman and board of directors are appointed by the President of the United States, but is owned and controlled by private banks. And again, the 10 banks that control us, the United States, are Rothschild, Bank of London, Warburg, Bank of Hamburg, Rothschild's Bank of Berlin, Lehman Brothers. They've been consolidated now. Then there's Lazard Brothers, the Commonwealth Bank of New York, the Israel Moses Schiff Bank of Italy, Goldman Sachs, Warburg Bank of Amsterdam, Chase Manhattan. And I always like this one. Folks, this is what you and I, as taxpayers, were stolen from. Citigroup, $2.5 trillion, and they got the gall and audacity for you to be late on a credit card, charging you 29%, which is illegal anywhere else, but not for the banks. We bailed their ass out. Do you think that they would return the favor? They're not human. They have no souls. And if they do have a soul, it's not of our kind. Morgan Stanley, $2 trillion. Merrill Lynch, $1.9 trillion. Bank of America, $1.3 trillion. Barclays, PLC, $868 billion. Bear Stearns, $800. And these were bonuses paid to all of these CEOs and their boards. Very lucrative payouts. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars individually, tax-free. How does that make you feel? Goldman Sachs, $800 billion. Royal Bank of Scotland, $500 billion. JP Morgan Chase, $391 billion. Deutsche Bank, $354 billion. UBS, $287 billion. Credit Suisse, $262 billion. Lehman Brothers, $183 billion. Bank of Scotland, $100. This is American tax dollars, $181 billion. BNP Paribas, $175 billion. Wells Fargo, $159 billion. DEXA, $159 billion. Wachovia, $142 billion. Dresdner Bank, $135 billion. Societe Generale, $124 billion. All other borrowers, $2.63 trillion, making the final tally that the American citizens have been robbed of. And do you see anyone in Congress? Do you see Trump raising a flag on this? No, because he made some money off of this. They're not going to indict these people. The total tally, $16.1 trillion. This was written by Charlie Robinson in his book, The Octopus of Global Control, 2017. You see, folks, people don't believe me. I'm trying to tell you what the illusion on the grandest scale perpetrated by the United States to the American public, and I dare say the world. We went into the second, in fact, it exceeded the first Great Depression in 2009. This is the New World Order. Feels good, doesn't it? And, we can go through here, on with the stories. Congressmen know about this, maybe not the new ones. I don't think they even care. But Pelosi, bet your ass that she knows about this, along with Chucky Boy. Why? They're the ones that allowed it. You never read the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act of 2010. Americans don't read it. I did. And if you would have read it, the Affordable Care Act of 2010, that was the second zinger that locked and took away the last vestiges of freedom of American citizenry. They took our banking system, and then they took our health care. And we'll never get it back. So now you have the global shadow government. This is made up of the CIA, NATO, the UN, and the International Monetary Fund. The 5 veto powers and permanent members of the Security Council, the so-called victors of the Second World War, the Old Boys Club of 1945, the 5 states that have corrupted the UN Charter and corrupted the work of the UN, applying double standards and disregard for law. They have made the organization primarily serve their interest rather than serve its mandate. I refer to the 5 most dangerous members that together manufacture and sell some 85% of all military arms, including nuclear weapons and so-called weapons of mass destruction. This is the UN of the arms dealers, the most disreputable and yet profitable business on earth. There's been several movies made on there. It was a comedy one. Yeah. Tragically and quite bizarrely, these arms dealers are the same member states that the UN Charter entrust with maintaining peace and security around the world. I trust you see the disconnect, the incompatibility, the mind-boggling reality of nuclear powers and weapons salesmen being responsible for peaceful coexistence. It's madness. This is Dennis Halliday, the Global Research Public Lecture, Montreal, Canada, December 1st, 2009. You tell me we don't live in a world of insanity. It is an illusion so well constructed that virtually everyone can acknowledge it, but they're still immersed in it. And it goes on and on. Then we got to talk about some of these other international, multinational companies. Cargill, Bechtel, the transnational corporations carry on inexorably, increasingly flagless and stateless. They weave global webs of production, commerce, culture, finance virtually unopposed. They expand, invest, and grow, concentrating ever more wealth in a limited number of hands. And look at it today, folks. They work, and that's why I don't doubt this. All you have to do is look at today. They work in coalition to influence local, national, international institutions and laws. And together with the governments of their home countries in Europe, North America, Japan, as well as international institutions such as the World Trade Organization and the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and increasingly the United Nations, they are molding the international system in which they can trade and invest even more freely. A world where they are less and less accountable to the cultures, the communities, and the nation states in which they operate. Underpinning this effort is not the historical excuse me. Sometimes these words, the inevitability of a evolving enlightened civilization, but rather the unavoidable reality of overriding corporate purposes, maximization of profits. Inevitability. I still got it. That was from the Sierra Club, not the twist on the word there. But this is the problem. What we saw in the Obama administration, because Obama was a anti-colonialist, he felt that Britain and the United States had a debt to pay to the world. And he advanced this culture of basically binding the U.S. laws to international treaties. And I do say the one thing for the Trump, I'm glad they got rid of TCPP. I mean, that was a pile of crap. Putting American citizens under the jurisdiction of foreign tribunals is not what the Constitution says. But it's a good lesson for all of us. You didn't see Congress getting all twisted about that, did you? No, we don't want to talk about that. They don't like me talking about this. They don't like anyone talking about this, particularly when you're getting down in the minutia. They don't like this at all. This is why I'm recording this. This is why it will be placed in other places. This is valuable information, folks. Valuable. Tax-exempt foundations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, the Rockefeller Foundations, Open Society Foundations. The organization of tax-exempt fortunes of international financiers into foundations was to be used for educational, scientific, and other public purposes. The inheritance tax drove the great private fortunes dominated by Wall Street into tax-exempt foundations, which became a major link in the establishment networks between Wall Street, the Ivy League, and the federal government. The foundations managed to acquire control over the primary Ivy League colleges, including Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and Princeton. Carol Quigley, historian, Georgetown University professor, in his book, Tragedy and Hope. And today, sadly, much of the grants that are available are politically and ideologically controlled. Particularly in the area of where you have the so-called climate emergency. Their models have been proven to be flawed. And you know, ask any politician, which model are they using for their stats? You know, because I can tell you the IPCC is going to make them a liar. But anyway, I digress. So the problem we have now with these foundations is that, well, here, I'll just read Andrew Gavin Marshall's quote. The dynastic families established philanthropic foundations to serve a dual purpose of justifying their wealth and influence by being perceived as giving back, but which in actuality provide concentrations of wealth managed for the purpose of strategic giving, to undertake social engineering projects with an ultimate objective of maintaining social control. While appearing to be charitable institutions, the major foundations are predominantly interested in the process of long-term social engineering. Notably among such foundations are the Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Corporation, Ford Foundation, Open Society Institute, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, among many others. And there are many others. You've got Zuckerberg has this foundation now. That is the way to go. Why? Well, number one, it's a tax haven. But more importantly, you're going to be, if they're giving you grant money, well, your research is going to be, how shall we say, compromised, because you're going to want to please the givers. And that becomes a problem, because now we have tax havens and global money laundering, preserving the wealth of the rich, and infamous in offshore secrecy jurisdictions. The Caicos is still the Turks and Caicos. Have you ever done business? Well, if you've done business, then you know. But anyway, so much money are in these private little islands, these little nations, it blows your mind. Trillions of dollars of global elite treasure are hidden from view. Individuals and corporations avoiding paying taxes. Again, Amazon is the big one. And Facebook is right there, Google. They don't pay their taxes. Now, they'll tell you, no, we do GAAP. We go according to what the law says. Yeah, because you're paying to get the laws written. The average Joe on the street doesn't have a CPA firm that's getting paid $100 million to find. Actually, it's not a CPA firm. It's a law firm. That's how it works. So look at this. So you've got the global money laundering list. This is the city of London, Wall Street, Nevada, Delaware, Wyoming, South Dakota, Hong Kong, Mexico, the Vatican, United States, Britain, Panama, Singapore, Malaysia. All of these participate. Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, the Netherlands Antilles. These are all the places. When you do large deals, I'm talking large deals, when you're looking, 8, 9, 10 figures, they go through these channels. It's quite interesting. Here are the territories under British influence. All of these, and there's the Turks and the Caicos, one I'm familiar with. It's a Ponzi scheme, man. And I'm not going to take the time to read all of this. But if you want to, you can stop the video. So then we get into the international trade of drugs. The drugs are never going to stop. Never. Listen, if you want to absolutely eliminate all the cartels, all the crime, all the payola, the buy-offs, etc., all the United States would have to do is legalize cocaine, heroin, all of it, and put it under, nationalize it under federal authority, tax it, and distribute it. It would literally crater overnight. Not going to happen. Why? The United States makes money off this. So does England, France, all of them. The drug industry is under control of a single world network. The drug-related illegal economy is the biggest business in the world. The British monarchy organized most of the Far East to conform to the drug traffic. The Anglo-Dutch offshore banking system and related precious metals and gems trade were designed around illegal money. The world drug traffic is a top-down operation under the immediate control of the British and Allied monarchies. This is on the BibleApocalypse.net, how the drug empire works. Cocaine is needed, clearly the most profitable article of the trade in the world. That's The Economist magazine, August 1989. And it's the small organizations that get caught trying to do the laundering. And that's where all the headlines go, and that's where all the cameras and everything else, and they'll say, see how we're doing this? But yet, this is what's funding terrorism. It's a way that you can do it and never track it. And who are the main culprits behind this? The intelligence agencies. The CIA is known, Tom Cruise, American made. was a CIA operation. They're the ones who started the cartels. And look at what they've unleashed on us. The Britain's MI6, excuse me. And of course, Mossad, Israel. And you don't want to mess with these people. You'll end up in the, Hudson River with, concrete shoes. But nevertheless, that was what the whole thing with Colonel, what was the cat's name? I got his eye in the 80s under Reagan, Oliver North. That's what he got busted on, was weapons to the Sandinista, and how they were financing it was through drugs. CIA was involved, military was involved. Pablo Escobar and other leading drug lords were encouraged by the CIA to deposit their earnings in 8 firms that had been set up by the Vatican as money launderies. Why the Vatican rules in Mexico. Mexico is still virtually 90% Catholic. The Vatican controls a vast amount of power in Mexico. Yeah, they conquered them and never let them go. By 1978, when John Paul II ascended to the papal throne, the money coming into these firms from the Medellin cartel alone was enormous, since Escobar, at the height of his power, was smuggling 15 tons of cocaine into the United States every day. The money laundering firms received was wired or transported by carrier, often by cleric, to the central headquarters of the Banco Ambrosiano in Milan. From Milan, the money was then rerouted to the IOR, the Vatican Bank, which charged a processing fee of 15 to 20%. From Vatican City, the funds were transferred to numbered bank accounts in Switzerland. The funds generated from the cocaine sales were used to sponsor black operations in South and Central America. A substantial amount of this cash was funneled into the Vatican's bank offshore shells. I see my time is running out. Wow. I mean, folks, do you see how complex this is? And how am I supposed to take this then that Jesus loves me snorting coke? I mean, because that's what the Vatican was doing. Yeah, I bet he did love me, huh? I mean, come on. You really think there's a God of the Bible? Because they don't. They wouldn't do that to humanity. But baby, it's about money. It's not about your soul. It's not about giving you a place in the afterlife. It's about taxing your ass right now for as much as they can. Yeah. I'll just lay it out to you. What'd you say there, Al? I didn't see it. So anyway, it's brutal. We'll pick up on Monday. We're not going to quit until we get to the end of this, because by the time we do, there will be a record out there of just how this works. And I know it hurts a lot of people when they see this stuff. There's people who are deeply believers, faithful. But the risk is when you pull the curtains back and see who the wizard is, you ain't going to like it. All right, folks, far out. Let's see. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what old Pope Pius XII said. And people don't believe that. They know that this Jesus story is made up But, I get ridiculed and, hammered on it because, well, that's heretic. You can't say that. Well, the United States, they're a Christian nation. We all believe in Jesus. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if just that they did too? Yeah. I know. All right, Ivan. Yeah. That's all I can say. Well, folks, thank you. Been a great week. We've had some great guests on. Got guests next week coming on as well. Have yourself a great weekend. Read, study, have fun, whatever you're doing. My dog is telling me that it's time to go. So much love to you. We'll see you on Monday. And we're going to get through this. We'll get through this. I mean, at least we're learning. I mean, that's better off than what we were, right? All right. Much love to you. Bye-bye.